Welcome to 909 Exec, your source for wit and wisdom in cybersecurity and beyond. On this podcast, your host, veteran chief security officer and cyber aficionado Den Jones, taps his vast network to bring you guests, stories, opinions, predictions, and analysis you won't get anywhere else. Join us for 909 Exec's panel on solving cybersecurity's talent crisis.
Okay, everybody, welcome to another episode of 909 Exec, and we have a special edition LinkedIn Live event. We're going to talk about solving the cybersecurity skills gap, or is there a skills gap? I don't know. Let's find out, because I have got some outstanding guests on the show, a little panel discussion here. Let's do some introductions. Over to my esteemed guests.
Hello, my name is Amelie Koran. Pretty much simplest thing is say go see LinkedIn. Handles WebJedi. Do lots of things in cybersecurity, but to keep it short and sweet, pass it off to other folks.
Thanks, Emily. My name is Bil Harmer, CEO and founder of Killswitch Advisory. 4-time, 5-time CISO. Again, same. Take a look at LinkedIn. I've just been kicking around this thing for about 30 odd years.
Deidre Diamond, founder and CEO of CyberSecurity. 11 years of talent matching solutions and 3 years of workforce risk management. This is near and dear to my heart, particularly in that women don't get enough representation in the industry, and it's already broken in finding and matching. So it's a big passion of mine. Good to be here.
Thank you.
Nicholas Moy, CISO at Scrub Automation, been a security engineer, security operations, product management, kind of all in cybersecurity for over 15 years.
Yeah,
Great to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, everybody. So this is for me an interesting thing. So we in the industry continually talk about the fact there's a skills gap. And I don't care which Slack channel I'm in or which WhatsApp group I'm in or looking on LinkedIn, I seem to see a lot of people saying, hey, I'm looking for work, or I'm struggling to find work. I'm looking for good work. So I want to pose the question, and Deidre, I'm going to come to you first, because I think, as I mean, you know, I've known each other about 11 years, even though me butchering your name every single bloody time would not show that, but we have worked together for a long time. At Adobe, I was one of your early customers, and we stayed in touch ever since, which makes me know that you've been in this game for a long time. So over the last 11 years, I mean, what have you guys seen as the evolution of the skills crisis, or is there a crisis?
There is a crisis, without a doubt. I like to look at the word skills and take it a bit further to the definition of experience. And the challenge is that everybody hiring, and I have the jobs data for 3 years of all job posting in cybersecurity. We've been following that data forever. And even though it's job posting data, it still normalizes and it tells a serious story, meaning there's lots of people hiring. At the end of the day, you know, what we see is that people want people coming out of having just been doing the work that they need done. Super similar, you know. So it's not just a sim, it's the sim, or you get the picture, and that's just a very tiny piece of the picture. It's literally industry, job, function, role. What were you doing? It's not the title. It's the experience. And that we have a shortage in, because the experience is different per industry that's needed, and it's a different skill set per vertical. And so, we stopped training as a society. You know what? I'm in my 50s. I think it really stopped about 15 years ago. We've seen significant change in the last 5. And so if we're not willing to train, and we will only take people that have the majority of what I need them to do as experience that they're doing now, I'm not going to hire them. And that's the case. Oh, and by the way, let me throw on top of that location. Many organizations are not doing remote anymore. So then that completely changes it. or they can't because maybe they're in, OT or something that has to do with safety. And so meaning they're more in the work together. So you add that onto it, and wow, we have a massive experience deficit.
Yeah. Amelie, any thoughts on that?
Well, here's where I get to be the devil's advocate. Just from personal experience, but also, I did a talk at ShmooCon back in 2018 regarding, firemen versus safety matches. How that was just dealing with trying to adapt skill sets that were non-traditional, stuff that wasn't just like, I got a degree in cybersecurity, which didn't exist when I was an undergrad. I came from, bopping around on computers and BBSs and stuff and learned it as I went along. But one of the things before I was just recently laid off, I was in a hiring mode, and based on what was being submitted for offensive security specialists, it was the percentage of folks that were coming to basically to this job postings, or three of them actually. It was probably maybe like 5% of those folks that I would figure I would want to have a conversation with at best. And this is, 200 to 600 people, resumes. And it wasn't for, I think, a lack of the candidates trying. There's some that were obviously, where I worked before, there are folks who had jobs elsewhere, like, shelf stockers and pharmacists and stuff like that, who were taking cybersecurity training in their own time to skill up. But folks who were coming in as experienced, most of them were ones that, wanted to get into it, into the offensive security side of the house, but just had a very light foundation of cybersecurity skills. And being for me, when I came up through this, I graduated with degrees that were not technical, and learned to become a system administrator and so forth. That doesn't seem to be the route that a lot of people follow, and that's what's a little bit disturbing, because as Deidre said, is that a lot of these postings they want to be very specific for a particular tool or an installation configuration or architecture, and nobody actually runs into that. I would not want to just hire somebody that's got the specific product experience. I know that down the road, having had products that have come in, services that have come in, you change your mind over time, and to be adaptable to say, hey, this is a person who has some really good skill sets to be adaptable, but also has the institutional knowledge that would be very hard to just basically say, well, we're done with the tool, we're going to go hire somebody else and let this person go. So I think that's our big challenge more than anything right now.
And I think you're both hitting one point, which is technology, right? There's so many technologies out there, and if an employer is looking for someone with specific technology experience and not willing to train in other technologies, then we certainly have an imbalance there. Because to your point, Amelie, right, is I remember joining Adobe in 2001, and my peers were called, their title was NT admin. And I'm like, my peers, other peer title was Novell admin. I'm like, wait a minute. So you guys can only you're only allowed to play around on one operating system. Like, I was a Windows, Novell, Unix, Linux. I mean, for me, it was just, I knew shit, right? So the reality is if we get down into I can only hire you if you know one specific thing, or depth on this one thing, then I think we're toast just on that one.
Well, that's
Nick or Bill?
that's the problem that we've been suffering with, right? Like, I mean, I never hire for, or try not to hire for, the specific I have. I hire the attitude and the characteristics of the person. And I would actually prefer, like, if I had a Palo firewall, I'd rather hire somebody with Fortinet experience, because then they will learn this and they will bring what they know from the other side to it. That's sort of my expectation. Because you're right, too much. It's like, what's our stack? Let me go find the person for that stack. And we feel that that's a lower risk. And truthfully, I think it's a bigger risk, because you have blind spots all over the place at that point.
And I think too, to adjust expectations too, is the candidates like myself will bemoan, like, okay, so this is a entry level role, but yet you're requiring 3 to 5 years of experience. Or as a senior level person, me with 25 to 30 years of experience, I can't get a call back. And I'm just like, so I've done everything. I've collected all the cybersecurity infinity stones on my gauntlet here, but yet I have a hard time getting a conversation with somebody regarding a new position. And I'm just like, so what am I missing? Is it the applicant tracking systems that are filtering
Oh,
stuff out before they
it
get to
totally
somebody?
is. It
Yeah.
totally is. Like, I mean, you said you don't have a degree in computer science. I don't have a degree. I'm a university dropout. I don't make it through the applicant tracking systems because the best I can do is, if I'm lucky, I tick a box that says high school.
Yeah.
And a Canadian high school,
A
Bill,
Canadian
was
high
it?
school at that. Like, so it's a metric
Jeez,
version.
man, you're like not even allowed.
A lot of
It's
maple
slightly
syrup.
longer and only ends in even numbers. There we go. Okay,
Exactly.
cool.
Nick, what were you thinking, man?
Yeah, I was just gonna add something I've seen from kind of the hiring side is and talking to friends who are hiring and what else is like, I think a lot of hiring managers, depending on the role, the companies, I think we give them too much credit that they know what they're looking for, that they know what they want, that they know what they need. I think they know what they want and know what they say, and they'll work with recruiting firms to try to find people. But then a lot of times I think because a recruiter will reach out to me, they'll say, this is what the company is looking for. I'll go talk to them. I'll talk to a hiring manager or the recruiter in the screening process. And it's clear to me they want something else. Like, what they say doesn't always match what they want. And especially and I feel pretty strongly about this for leadership roles, because it can ruin a team. It can ruin an org. Like, you say you want this and you're but this is what you're hiring for. And so there's a huge mismatch in it's like saying, I want someone with all this stuff and I want to pay them like a junior sysadmin, or I want a junior sysadmin, but they need to be distinguished security engineer level skills. And I mean, I think it sounds crazy, but I within the last 90 days, I would have been approached for roles where, they say like, hey, we're looking for such and such type of leader to run this org. And then you ask them a few questions and they're like, no, we don't. The reality, what they don't say is, we don't really want to invest in that team. Things are falling apart, and there's a lot of turnover risk, and we're this is like a cleanup job. So you should bring in a consultant.
Nick, I love that you're bringing that up, because this conversation is going between, what are people hiring, what's going on with the market, and job postings and the whole process of interviewing and what have you. And your point hit me when I first founded my firm, having left staffing for 10 years. I didn't realize what the digital era has done. And one of the things that can put perspective is that before the digital era, to post a job, you had to pay $5,000 in the Sunday paper. And this is, think about how much that $5,000 was worth back then. And you got about this much space, and it was only Sunday. It would never be around again. And now people can just post jobs, so they don't have to really take the time to figure out what they're advertising. Like, it's such an interesting thing to say, wow, that ad being free or cheap as hell caused organizations to just be one more thing they just fly by the seat of the pants on, which is the job description. And now we're all suffering for it. We're suffering because of making the wrong matches, to your point that's so solid, Nick, and really messing up with teams. We're doing it and burning out people because jobs are left open too long. And we're also hurting that we're not moving our teams forward. We're not progressing. We're stand still or go back at best. As somebody who's come up through operations before the digital era and built high profile companies that do extremely well, it's maddening to see the sort of the pre-digital, post-digital effect of these job descriptions, because they really need to be the source of truth of work. And what is the workload? What are the tasks? What are the projects that have to get done versus who do I think I want to hire? What's the persona of the human I think I want? Let me slap that up on the screen for $100.
Hey folks, just want to take a minute to say thanks for listening to the show, watching the show, or however you engage with us. If you're liking the conversations, if you think we're adding some value, we'd love you to like, subscribe, and share the show with your friends. If you know of anyone else that would benefit, ideally for us, that will help us be able to grow the show, invest more in the quality, get some more exciting guests, and keep bringing you some executive goodness. Thanks, everybody. Take it easy and enjoy the rest of the discussion. Yeah.
Take an add-on to that one, which is for me, when I've been in a hiring manager role, is I act as the hiring manager I wish I had when I go looking for a job, which is regardless the volume of applicants I get and the resumes, as a team leader or a manager, an executive, if you're hiring for somebody who's going to be reporting to you, or significant input on specifically say a particular new role, that's part of your job. You need to be an active hiring manager. You just can't say, well, I'm just going to let the thing filter it out or whatever. Like when I was hiring at Health and Human Services, I went to the gym. That way it got me out of my office, away from people, and I brought my iPad of all the resumes, and I read all of them top to bottom while I was doing exercise. But that was the thing, is like I made sure I made time to give everybody a fair shake. And the thing is also, I see people complaining, is like, I get these really impersonal feedback. They'll be popped out of the ATS and they're like, what did I do wrong? Like when I was trying to hire when I was at Walmart, I had a spreadsheet of every one of those applications too, and I had different columns for whether or not they were junior, too junior, where I assessed they were, so I could give them feedback as these are the other skills you need to have, and then notes potentially to the HR partner or recruiter I had to basically say, hey, this is the reason why I want this person, so that if I needed to get it justified through another executive, they understood why I was interested in them. So they may have not had the perfect skill or the perfect tool set, but I saw potential in them, and that's how I would dictate how I wanted them to grow and where I saw them in the future, not just now.
And and that's brilliant. I think it's really interesting because if you think of this as the whole pipeline, right? The process of going from knowing we need a position filled, we have budget, now we're going to write the job up, and I've seen a job post last week where they were looking for an AI engineer. They wanted 5 years experience with Gemini. And there tells me the sign straight away. You want experience in something that's not been
Is
around.
it me, or did he disappear?
Oh, I'm still here. You might find a little lag on StreamYard sometimes. So basically it's interesting because then I think of when you apply for positions, and one thing I knew is we were doing our diversity. We had a women's executive shadow program at Adobe that I used to participate in every year. And one of the things I learned in my first year was when there's a job posting, a guy will apply for the job even if he can only see himself fit in probably 50% to 70%. A woman won't apply for the job unless she sees herself matching almost 100%. So I think even the industry, so there's that piece. And then when you bring the applicants in, if you're not finding the applicants you want, and I worked with the team at CyberSN for years on this one, which is anytime we're not getting what we want, you as the hiring manager need to work with the recruitment team to adjust what you're looking for, get feedback, and huddle together so that you're refining it. It's equivalent to when you're looking for a house and you realize your budget doesn't go that far. I wanted a chimney. Yeah, I wanted a fireplace and 2-car garage and a swimming pool. But then it turns out my $4.99 million in San Jose doesn't get that. It gets a 1-bedroom hut. So I need to change. And I think that's a big thing.
Too often the hiring managers don't think that they've made a mistake. They're like, no, this is what we should get. That's our budget. We will get it. And like you're so far off on those things, and they won't adjust, right? They say, well, there's a skills gap out there.
No, so do you guys think? Sorry, Bill, but do you then therefore think, or what you're getting at is we have an expectations problem from the hiring manager, the employers?
100%.
100% there too, yeah.
And the more we talk about the gap, the more they go, oh, I can get more because there's all these unemployed people that want jobs. It's not how it works. Right. And then, the pandemic threw everything into a shift because a lot of people moved away from certain areas, right? They did I can work from anywhere, so I'll go to Boise, Idaho. And then everything changed. And then a lot of companies went, no, we want at least hybrid. We want, 2 days a week in the office, which, isn't unreasonable, but it's impossible if you live in Boise and the company's in the Bay Area.
Yeah. Now, also, we've got people watching live here, so please submit any questions. And Tamika Jones, actually, she just raised that one thing on her little chat. She was saying, hey, what about the redefining of hybrid, remote? So as we kind of went through the whole COVID thing, and then companies are trying to, I'm going to say, reset from their working style. How do you guys see that changing our dynamic?
I mean, we definitely see clients that are requiring in the office, even if it's 2 days a week, jobs open 5 times as long if they fill it. If they fill it. That's how hard it is to get in office. Like, I had a client call the other day, wanted to do security researcher startup in the office every day. I was like, no, it's just going to be a waste of our time. I'm not interested in that work. It's not possible. Never mind for a researcher. So people are fighting against it. They don't want those roles, but they're not going away. People aren't budging. If they're doing it, they're doing it. If they're not doing it, they're not doing it. There's like, everybody's made their choices as companies, and startups are doing in person a lot.
I know 3 in New York, all in office. They will only hire in office, and they're crushing it. Like, they love what they do. And I went over to one of them for lunch a few months ago, and I was meeting the CEO, and we were sitting, and he goes, "Do you want to have lunch in the office?" Yeah, it's great. And it didn't clue into me, but we went downstairs, we did the lunch line, sat down at a table, and I realized I was sitting there with 55 people having lunch. I hadn't done that in years. Like,
old school.
Like, this is going back to SAP days where they had an inbuilt cafeteria on the campus. And it was, I have to admit, the nostalgia came back, but there was something amazing about it, to see people just talking about their weekend, The Simpsons, whatever, and forming those bonds that really, so it was a really interesting way to see it. But then I've got another company that is 100% remote, no office. And I'm like, okay, I got you. Where's head office though? They're like, post office box in Delaware, right?
Yeah.
Literally. And they're crushing it as well. They have built around that culture. So I think if you build around the culture, the shift, the change, trying to change from one to the other is very difficult, because you'll have ingrained people that are used to human contact daily basis, and they want that, and they tend to be the executives because they've been there the longest. That's going to be hard to change to a remote only. But if you build it from day one as remote only, it can be very successful.
You can transition that too. I think the expectations of certain types of jobs don't necessarily need to be in an office. Like my last role, the times that it was a hybrid 2 to 3 days a week, and while I was a manager and stuff like that, my entire team was remote. So there was, honest to goodness, no reason for me to be in the office. And I felt those were the most unproductive days, because I never had like focus time. But prior to that, I've been generally remote for 5 years, since 2019. But prior to that, I was in the office. But my deputy was remote in Wisconsin, and I had zero problems with it. In fact, that was probably the most productive employment situation I've ever had, because we just managed to knock stuff out of the park. And that being a government agency, we had regional offices and stuff like that. So you can manage certain roles, certain jobs, certain tasks with a distributed team. It's really up to the manager to understand how they need to work within that space. And I think putting it on the employees that you need to adapt to this. You have people who may be neurodiverse, they may have family needs, handicaps, work-life balance situations with spouses living certain places that they be able to afford and enjoy what they do, need to live where they live. And adapting to that, I think, is fundamental. But I don't see that move coming, and I wish it would, because I think we'd be better as a society if we're a lot more adaptable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was just about to ask, it's like the whole concept of Monday to Friday, 9 till 5. I know a lot of people where that's totally out the window now. And it's really funny. So I'll do my shameless plug for our 909 IC platform, where we're trying to connect students to employers. And the whole concept of this one is, first of all, how do we bring students into the industry before they graduate, like Bill and I? I mean, Bill and I have been in the industry for decades, and we've not graduated yet, so we're technically still students, Bill. So the thing for me is this concept of Monday to Friday, 9 till 5. I think that's kind of behind us now. I think there's other industries where that's cool, but I think in the cyber industry, I don't have any problem with my team not working an 8-hour day, Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, provided we agree what's required, we see progress, we get shit done, we deliver the results, we impress the business. You can work on a Saturday for all I care. And for me, that's part of my ethos of when you build a team. Maybe I want a blended team of people who are hybrid, they're on premise, they're whatever they are, they're in their van doing van life shit when that was cool. I don't know if that's still cool or not. But for me, it's a blend of everything. And then I think, Deidre, you hit on the biggest thing for me is training. I have heard so many people tell me how after COVID, their company are no longer really investing in any training at all. So if I hire, like Bill said, for enthusiasm, energy, and a certain level of skill and talent, I should assume I'm going to invest in those employees. So where are you guys at on the whole, why is training gone to shit recently?
It's seen as a cost center, to be honest. I see this as like the easiest thing for people to cut. When I was at HHS, like I gave up my own training dollars to make sure my staff got training. Like we had stuff that was partitioned out. Part of the individual development plans, that's also a big thing for managers, is to sit down, you mentioned before about setting expectations, but making sure that, when you're developing those training plans, you look for stuff that's free, that could be local, stuff that involves travel, and you try to do those balances. But part of that is, it's not just like, well, we have a subscription, we have some seats for SANS or whatever, first come first serve, or we need to burn that out, versus like actually have a structured plan so that as you're doing that budget planning, those investment dollars, like they exist in the budget. There's alignment to strategy, there's alignment to development, there's a progression for both the organization and the employee. And I've seen that go by the wayside, not just recently, but literally the last 15 plus years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to add to that, if they do have the training, there's no time. I have lots of clients that have the training, but their people don't feel like they have the time, and they're not sure which training should they take, what's going to be best for my career. And so then nothing happens because time is an issue. And so to your point, Amelie, that you got to have a plan, and you got to the employers got to take lead on the plan and workload management to have the training, have time and focus. And I love that you said that. That's exactly it. It's the employer's responsibility. We're at a 24/7 connected world. No longer is there such a thing as 9 to 5. It's not just because you like to give that. Most people are just not even capable of shutting it off because their employers won't allow it. And so if that's the case, or even if it's not, it's an employer's responsibility to make sure that the workload is manageable for mental health and for safety.
You can also do, like, think about it as a, your farm team too. Like you're developing, people that are going to eventually, hopefully go into other roles. They maintain that institutional knowledge, but you're giving them a development path as well.
Yeah. And the whole idea of asynchronous work, I've done it for, God, almost 2 decades, where I don't believe in a work-life balance. I believe in a balanced life, right? So if that means I go to the gym at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I go to the gym at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I am going to be working at 9 o'clock at night or 2 in the morning, or, and this, this comes back from the old days where I used to sleep under the desk at work. Like it was just, you get into crunch time, right? You get into those things where I'm going to finish this. I'm so vested in what I'm doing, and I have such pride in what I'm doing. I'm sleeping on the floor. I'm building, I'm deploying, it's out. And then I took 3 days off, right? And nobody said anything because that's just who we were. It's the way we did it. And I'd love to see that come back and be more. Oh, yeah, IR, absolutely.
Yeah, I've slept on folding tables more times than I can count, or under a desk. Yes.
Yeah. But I also see, like, Deidre, you said it's on the employer to get this going, and I agree. But I say it is a balance. The employees have to want it, right? Like I am not going to pay for all of their training. I'm going to pay for some training. Pick some stuff that's maybe the really expensive stuff. I'll find that expensive course and I'll get you that. But I want you to train yourself in something else. Show me the initiative. Show me the desire, the curiosity. And that's the give and take. I'll pay for this. You come back, and at the end of the year, you've got 4 courses. I paid for a super expensive one. You did 3 freebies on your own, and now you are a way better employee.
Yeah, I'm just saying they have to give them the time to do it, or they won't go out.
Oh yeah.
That's where They
Yeah,
want
yeah. I'm
their-
kind of old school at times too, where it's like, if you really want the training, you know, I had a father that did night school for 10 years. I went to, to try to finish my degree, which I didn't. I failed at it. But I always did all my training off the job, right?
I know. That's
Even if it was paid for, I did it off the job because I had
Yeah.
my job, and the training was to get me better and get, better job, more money, higher responsibility. And I think that's one of the things you have to ask. And I know that there's again, how do you live a balanced life? And these are choices that we have to make. I know I pay for choices with my daughter because there were years where I was not around. Like there was big stretches. I was on the road traveling. I was doing stuff, and then having to think, oh, I got to go spend Saturday in a course. I'm going to go spend Saturday in a course because I need to get better at it to give my family the better life because I want the better job. And it's all personal choices, but we have to look at them. Unfortunately, we don't get everything.
Yeah, I just, oh,
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna add too. I think you do have to look at like company, like the company values. I think the pandemic kind of showed there's no loyalty in big companies. I think a lot of us who started out in the office Monday to Friday, really Monday through whatever day, and it wasn't really 9 to 5. It was like 7 to 9. It just I think the expectation was like, hey, we show up, we get work done, we're doing what the company needs, and there needs to be some kind of loyalty. I think during the pandemic, the relationship between employer and employee became really adversarial. There's a lot of big companies, some chose to take care of their employees, some chose not to. And then I think the trust was really gone. There was no social contract. Like there are no rules. Like people who worked at Google for decades laid off by an email, not even an email, just like shutting off their email. No notice, no notification. Layoffs before the pandemic, having been part of the teams, being on the security side, preparing for these, there was a lot more care put into it. The expectation was like, these are people's lives and these are people who give more time than they do to their families to be at the office and do work.
Yeah.
And then I think the idea, it's very hard to imagine as a junior employee, like, or a mid-career employee, like, I'm going to go invest all this time. But what is the company? The company may just lay me off, not for any performance reason, zero justification, because the reality is it's at will, right? And so it's kind of like, especially in our field in security, it's I mean, I've seen few exceptions to that it is at will. And I think, and look, I'm not saying like the world's going to change tomorrow. So instead, you just have to find founders, CEOs, companies, and teams that kind of match what you're looking for. There are teams who want to be in the office, and at a certain part of your career, being in the office can be useful. You can get mentoring from more senior team members a lot faster than you could remotely, and you can build a camaraderie. And then if you're more senior in your career and being in the office doesn't really kind of work for your lifestyle, you just have to find a different company. You can't really expect the employer to change because they're not going to, Like if I want to go to a big company, I know what I'm going to be in for because I know, I mean, they just believing anything else would be very hard. Like they are what they are, I've hired so many teams at a very big company and I've seen kind of how they've changed over the last few years. I left 3 years ago and it's been less than desirable for the people who have been there, right? And it's tough, but there's a lot of trade-offs they have to make, as Bill said. But I do think like, if you can, where possible, don't trade off your values, right? Like if you can get the compensation you need in the location that works for you, the values aren't worth it for the brand. I'll tell you that much, because the brand will probably kill you in the end. I mean,
that's great, Nick. Yeah, I'd love to shift to tips and tricks for either hiring people or applicants, right? So let's start, Deidre, with you. Do you want to share one or two tips and tricks that you find or that you think will be helpful to improve our crisis situation?
I don't know if we can call it a tip because to me, without this, nothing works, which is something that Nick talked about. And I think all of us touched on. You have to know what we're looking for, meaning what's the job that needs to get done, not the persona of the human you think you want to hire. Clearly document the workload, what it looks like, what percentage of time on what tasks, what projects with what tools, and who else is on the team, and like really understand that so that a match can be made. You know, they can't make a match without the job description being right. Everything else is just spins the wheels if it's not there.
Excellent. Excellent. What about Amelie?
Oh, definitely alignment on that one a bit, but also, for me is I've always bucked like our hiring standards. Like typically, to be fair, everyone's like supposed to go through the process, have the same questions being asked to remove bias. I always set up a screening call. I want to talk to people where they're not pressured, they're not stressed out. Find out the human first. I mean, we can talk about the job during the interview and stuff like that, but I think honestly, just taking some time for a screening call. If you look over somebody's resume as a hiring manager, that's one thing. And then again, too, is what I've been told now that I'm actually literally hunting for a job is like network, network, network. I've seen hit and miss on that. I've been lucky this time around where, it's people I've known and working that, but it's a lot of extra effort. I think, there's very little tips I can give because things they keep changing so rapidly, and the tools that people are using to be found change so rapidly. And then the methods for hiring are different from company to company. So it's like, I think for any candidate is to be extremely adaptable if you can. Not all can be, but I think for that is just to understand, like, you may have some dream stuff that you're wanting to go for, but it's okay to shoot a little bit lower, in hopes that you're, as Nick said about finding that culture match with the company, see if there's alignment there and the like. So I think those are like from both ends, from the hiring manager, it's okay to break rules if you're just trying to find out more about the human. And then on the candidate side is be adaptable.
That's excellent. Bill, any thoughts on this one? Any good tips?
Yeah, definitely. So the networking part, and people have different responses with it. I have not applied for a job in 18 years. Everything has been somebody knew me, gave me a call, said, we think you'd be good for this, and would you come in and talk to us? So, remember, in this industry, especially in this industry, it's your reputation and your history, right? We need people with integrity. We need people. So never compromise those values as you're going through. If you're applying for jobs, read that job description to get through the ATS. Read the job description and use their words back to them. So if they're talking about some project and you've done the project, take their words out of the project they've asked for and put them in your description, so it starts keyword matching. I think that's one of the tricks I would say to get through to somebody. But also, show initiative. Find ways to get to the hiring manager and reach out to them directly. Don't be a pain, but find the balance. And again, in the security world, I want people that'll hack through the system. I want people that'll find ways around the rules that will get to me in a way that is, I think, appropriate. And, show up my front door, we're going to have an issue. But, there will honestly be a part of me that respects that they even did it. You might not get hired, but I'll have a little bit of respect in there for it. So, show who you are and show why you are of value to that hiring manager, because this is a trust issue, right? We talk about zero trust and no trust and don't trust, but when it comes to this, and especially with remote employees, because you're not there, you're not interacting with them every day, you need to trust what they do and trust what they say. One of the only people I've thankfully had to fire very few people over the years for cause, and the only one I did was a trust issue when they lied directly to me, and it was a remote situation. I couldn't trust them anymore. They were a great person, they're a great human being, great skills, but they were afraid of what the answer was going to be if they had told me the truth. And it was exact opposite. If they told me the truth, they weren't getting fired. If they lied to me, they were getting fired. They lied to me. So, honesty is your best policy.
Nick, what about you?
Yeah, I think on the networking piece, it is, there's a lot of different ways to do it. It doesn't always have to be like showing up to some kind of large function with a ton of people you have to go shake hands with and kind of whatnot. You can do it one-to-one. You can do it. I think you can do it on Zoom. There are people willing to have virtual coffee and they'll take the call. I've referred I think one thing not to do is like I've had folks I've tried to help with their kind of job search. I've referred them to folks in my network and, you know, who are willing to have a call with them, who are, if they're not hiring managers today, they will be in the future. I think the biggest mistake is like not following up on that. I mean, especially if it's virtual and they're making time to do it, like, do not do that, because the feedback will come to me. It comes to me, and then, you know, someone, my friend, old colleague, will be like, "Hey, the person, you know, who you referred to me, they didn't show up for the call, right? Kind of no notice, no nothing." And it's like, for me, I get stuff comes up, but like, then send an email and just be like, "Hey,
Yeah.
you know," and if they're unwilling to take the call, that, you know, it's kind of like, it's kind of a no fault situation. Just, it's better than not showing up, not saying anything, and ghosting a person who's making the time, and who I statistically know, it's not
Yeah.
it's usually the second to third degree connection. The person I introduce you to won't be the person who hires you. They will know someone who's hiring, timing wise. It just usually works out that way. And like, you're just really, you know, and I get it. It's like, it does. I think it's Amelie said, like, networking takes time, but, you know, it's hit and miss just as much as ATS systems. There are
Yeah.
good tools online you can use to rank. You can copy and paste a job description and copy and paste your resume, and it will rank your kind of resume for that job description from an ATS perspective too. And obviously, you know, there's a lot of ChatGPT, Gemini tools to use. I mean, at this point, it's like there's kind of no rules. So like, I think for you, saving time is important. Use those tools to kind of optimize your output, so you can make time for networking.
Yeah, and Amelie, you sparked the word networking at the start of your answer, and then Bill and Nick. And it's funny, I wrote it down straight away because for me, like Bill, I applied for a job in the year 1992, and since then I have not applied for a job. Like, of all the jobs I've got, I mean, I've applied for other jobs and never got them
You
because
just don't get them.
but yeah, I've never got those jobs. But all of the career moves I've made have been via my network. And the one thing I learned years ago was build your network before you need it.
Oh,
And don't build your network when shit's hit the fan and all of a sudden you start contacting these people you haven't spoken to in ever. Now, funnily, I say that because when I've had more time as I've been building our 99 cyber business, I've had more time. And then if I see somebody pop up on LinkedIn and they mention something, I'm like, oh, I haven't spoken to them forever. Let me just drop them a line, see how they're doing. So there's a little bit difference on the genuine nature of it and your integrity. I think there's a big thing here that we've all touched on, which is ethics, integrity, brand, and how you show up really matters. And in some case, for me, when and my little bit of advice for employers when they're posting their nonsense job descriptions and shit online, as Deidre says, right? You're not posting the $20,000 article in the Sunday Times any longer. It's free pretty much. So but I think you should take a little bit of thought and actually stop talking about the technology you want and start talking about the people and the industry and the disciplines more than anything else. Because I want to know somebody's passionate about working the SOC, or I want to know someone's passionate about working incident response or doing research. The technologies they use to do that, if you start listing technologies, you're naive as an employer because you don't realize they're continually evolving and changing. When you go to the conferences, yeah, like RSA, I don't know, 3,500 security vendors these days. It's a lot. Whatever the number is, it's a lot. I didn't count them though. So I think the reality is write job descriptions in a way that makes sense, and actually, and like I did with CyberSN, partner with the recruiters. You know, if whether you're doing a contract hire, full-time hire, or whatever, I think that acknowledgement back and forth as a hiring manager, recognize that's not your daily job. The recruiters do that day in, day out. Seek their advice as you write the job description. How successful will it be and how urgent is the hire? So I think that partnership's vital.
then
you're like,
that you know, just real quickly, that job building technology is free to people now. You don't have to be a paid client. I can't stand it. I made it free a few years ago. So, we're the founders of the job taxonomy and the job building taxonomy in cyber. Please use it. It'll make everything easier for you. That
And
being
even-
said, it's not as easy as posting a job. Go ahead.
Yeah. But even pay scales as well, right? Deidre, it's like that as well. Like, what pay scale? I saw somebody post for a job in New York on premise, and they were struggling to hire, and they were talking to me about it. And my joking response, because we just launched 909 IC, was, "Oh, that sounds like you can't afford a full-time employee. You should maybe think of a couple of students. You'll get them local. They'll want the money. Think about a different tactic, a different approach." So I know we're up on time, everybody. Does anybody have any closing words, any wisdom better than the Scottish guy's bullshit?
on your networking side, like you said, building your network, once you have your network connected, stay in touch with them, because like you said, the last thing you should do is show up with a handout asking for something if that's the first contact you've had in 15 years or 8 years. And I cannot tell you how many times I've had that. And then for the non-entry level people, for the people like us at our level, connect with the recruiters. I always accept connections to recruiters, and I help recruiters because they'll reach out and say, "Hey, I'm looking, are you thinking about moving?" I am not thinking about moving, but let me help you find somebody, because the day you need help, if you've helped place somebody with them, they will be on your side to get you a job because they know the integrity of who you are.
Great advice. Anybody else?
I guess also to maybe kind of, talk about network activation, but also just, being trusted and whatnot is, don't be a jerk. I mean, I have a lot of people where, throughout my career, I've seen people who've gotten theirs and they don't offer a hand up or a leg up. And I think those are people I'd steer away from, because it's the ego. I'm much more giving than I am taking a lot of times, and I would rather help someone find a role, direct them what kind of skills they could build up, steer them away potentially from a potential toxic employer. But the thing is bring your whole self, but also don't be a jerk. And that'll help you, I think, both as a candidate, but also as a potential employer. Though my whole other, recent job, I think, was because I had volunteered at places and I was a known quantity, and it got me to at least be able to talk to somebody. And I value that. And thank you, Skylar. If you're ever watching this, thank you so very much for that opportunity, because it did really kind of change my life. But again, I always like to try to pay it forward. So I think that's another thing to carry forward.
That's brilliant. Brilliant. Anybody else? Nick, you look like you're full of wisdom, but if not, man, we can wrap this shit up.
I think I just second what everyone says. Networking is kind of key.
And I think, and I think the giving thing, I think volunteering, I think these are all just great ways to let people know who you are, where your ethics are, and from a trust and likability and all that stuff, I think is critical. So everybody, first of all, thank you very much to our esteemed guests. Again, go back to networking, right? I mean, everybody on the panel, with the exception of Amelie, I've known for years. So hopefully, Amelie, you and I, we get to bond for years. And I think the reality for me is finding good people in your network. Even for me doing stuff like this, I like to think I'm a giver. I try and help companies in their early stages. I think in our careers, that's a wonderful thing. However we can help people, I always think it comes back. So for me, that's a vital thing of showing up and showing who you are, because that's a very attractive quality to employers and people in the industry when they see other people trying to raise everybody else up together. So with that positive note, everybody, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. We will be posting this obviously on our 909 Exec podcast channel in a few weeks, so look out for it. But until then, catch everybody on this panel on LinkedIn, be their friend, and network with everyone. And we've got Kill Switch Advisory, we've got CyberSN, we've got Kick-Ass Amelie, and Nick, he will automate the shit out of any of your scrap. I don't know, Nick, man. I got to come up with a better joke for that one. Anyway, if you're in Black Hat, I think almost all of us, are we all at Black Hat next week?
Probably.
No. Well, yeah.
Unemployed, can't go. Too much money.
Good chance most of us are going to be there. So yeah, so hopefully hit us up and try and catch us. We'll be out and about. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for listening to 909 Exec. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and don't miss an episode of your source for wit and wisdom in cybersecurity and beyond.